quick demo of this video. Here we'll implement the CRUD operations insert, update and delete in a Node.js application with the help of MongoDB Express server and using a template engine of your choice. For this demo project we'll be using Handlebars. To insert a new record, click on this add button here, then fill up the form. Submit the data, and here we have successfully inserted the record. Inside this view, all of the records from the MongoDB collection is retrieved and rendered inside a table. Now if you want to edit an existing record, click on this edit button here so that the corresponding record details will be populated inside the form. Then after making the required changes, once you submit the form, the corresponding record details will be updated with the new values. And finally, to remove a record, you can click on this delete button. That's it. We have built this Node.js project from scratch step by step with all the necessary explanations when needed. I'm sure you will find this tutorial helpful, so please watch till the end of this video. Before going forward, as always, I would like to thank for your donations through PayPal and other platforms for my previous works. In order to make more and more quality tutorials like this, you can also support me through various payment methods given below in video description. So without further ado, let's get started with creating the Node.js application inside this project folder. For that, first of all, we have to open the command prompt from this same folder directory. Since I'm using Windows operating system, I will use this shortcut. Just replace this folder path with cmd, then hit enter, so that the command prompt will be opened from the same folder directory as that of this folder here. Okay. Now if you want to hide this long folder directory, you just need to use this command prompt, then $G. This will only work with command prompt, not with PowerShell, just to remind the Windows users. So here we have hidden the folder path. Now just clear everything prior to this. Now in order to create a Node.js application, we can use this command npm init. Now we have to name this project. Inside this project we'll be dealing with book details, so I will name this app as book register. Hit enter. Keep hitting enter if you are okay with the default values that is asking for here. By default, a Node.js application entry file will be named as index.js. Instead, I prefer the name server.js. Finally, you could see the configurations that you have given so far and which is going to be saved into the file package.json. If you're okay with that, type Y for yes and hit enter. Now inside this folder directory, you could see the file package.json. Now let's install the required npm packages. First of all, we have the Express framework. So basically it enables our Node.js application to process or handle HTTP requests and response, and the seamless integration with template engines. And then we have this Mongoose package to interact with the MongoDB. Finally, we have this body parser. We'll be using this package for parsing the incoming request body. The packages for view engines will be installed later in this video. And finally, you could see this package NodeMon. This package is only for development environment. The benefit of using this package is that whenever you make changes inside the application, the running instance of the server will automatically get restarted to reflect the new changes. Instead of installing the package only to the current project using this command given here, it is recommended to install the package to your entire system using this installation command here, having this global argument. Now let's go ahead with the installation of these packages. npm install express mongoose body parser. The package NodeMon is already installed in my system globally. Anyway, I'm going to install this package because it will be added to the package.json file. So whenever you clone the demo project from my GitHub repo, it will be installed on your project also when you execute the npm install command. Hit enter. Now let's open the directory inside the VS Code. For that I will do this code then space period or dot simple. So here we have the brand new Node.js application. Now let me show you the structure of the app that we are going to build. For that, I will create a new file called app_structure.txt. I have already prepared this structure. Let me copy paste that here. So first of all, we have the default entry file server.js, and then we have the db.js file to establish a connection with the MongoDB. And then we have these folders similar to MVC architecture: model, view, and controller. You will understand them better once we create them. So first of all, let's start with the server.js file. First of all, let's start the server using the Express framework. So here we have imported the method Express from the package. Now let's invoke the same like this, Express. As a result of invoking the method, we got this object app. For rest of the configurations, we can make use of this app object. For example, in order to start this server, we can invoke the method listen from this app object like this. As a first argument, we can pass the port number from which we want to start this server. As a second argument, we can pass this success callback. Inside that, we will just print this message: server started at 3000. And in order to catch any possible error, we can wire up a function like this. I'll just print the message here: server ignition failed. And let's append the error object like this. Now let's run this server.js file to start the Express server from this port number 3000. For that, I will open the previous same command prompt side by side with the VS Code. In order to run this server.js file instead of Node, I will make use of the package nodemon, then server.js. So here we have the success message from the success callback here. Server started at 3000. Now since we are using the nodemon, whatever changes we make here, at the same time the nodemon will get restarted to reflect the new changes. So that's how the package nodemon works. Now let's see how to connect with a MongoDB. Now in order to work with the MongoDB, I will be using this cloud version of the MongoDB, cloud.mongodb.com. It's free. If you are not having an account on this website, go to this website here, mongodb.com. Just click on this try free button and just go through the steps that it follows. Now back to the admin panel here. Now first of all, let me configure the network access, which you can see inside the side menu under the security network access. Click on this edit button on the row where the status is active. And then click on this allow access from anywhere, so that you can access this DB from anywhere. Now if you want to allow access to this cluster only from a particular IP address, you can pass that inside this access list entry. Now click on confirm. Once it is done, back to database, click on the cluster, which in my case cluster 0. Under collection, we are going to create a new DB. So click on create database. I will name the database as book register DB. The collection name will be books. Click on create. So here we have the newly created DB, book register DB. Inside that we have this books collection. Into that we'll be adding records from our Node.js application here. For that we need a new URI to the DB that we have just created. So go to overview. Then under the current cluster, click on this connect button. Provide a username and password if you already haven't yet. So admin, then password 1234. Click on create database user. Once the user is successfully added, click on this button, choose a connection method. Now from this tab, select this drivers option. Then from this third step, just copy this DB URI here. Click on done. Back to the app, create a new file called db.js and we'll save the DB URI into this constant here. So this is the same file that we have just talked about inside the app structure. So here we have the username admin that we have just created. Then in place of this password, just provide the password that we have given, 1234. Then after this @ you could see the cluster that we have opted, and then in between this mongodb.net / and this question mark, we have to provide the name of the DB that we want to consume from this project. So that will be, so here it is, book register DB. So that's it. Here we have a perfect DB URI. Now in order to connect with the DB, we'll make use of the package Mongoose. So first of all, let's import the same here. Then we just need to invoke this method connect from Mongoose. Inside that, we just need to pass the DB URI. Now actually this connect function will return a promise. Now always I recommend to handle the promise from this connect method inside this server.js file. So what I'm going to do is, from this db.js file, I will export an anonymous function like this. Inside the function, we'll return the promise got from invoking the Mongoose method connect. So whenever this anonymous function is invoked inside this server.js file, we'll get the promise returned from invoking this connect method here. And that will help us to manage everything from a single file, server.js file here. You will understand it better in a bit. Now inside this anonymous function, we only have a single statement, which is this return statement here. So we can even simplify it like this. Okay. Now back to server.js file. Let's import the anonymous function that we have just created. I will just separate the local imports and package imports like this. Local imports. I will create a function called connectDB, and let's import the file db.js. Now we have this anonymous function inside this connectDB. Now let's invoke that here. ConnectDB, it will return a promise. So here we have the success callback. First of all, we'll print this message, DB connection succeeded. Now this is what I'm talking about, managing everything from a single file. I will only start the server if the connection to the DB is successful. For that, we can move this server ignition into this connectDB success callback here. Once a successful DB connection is established, we will start this server from this port number. I think that is more convenient. Now if there is any error, we'll handle that inside this catch function. Error in connecting the DB. Let's open the command prompt where we are running this server.js file using node mode. So first of all, we have made a successful connection to the DB, and then we have started this server from this port number 3000. Now let's try to retrieve the collection books from this DB book register. At present, inside this collection books, we don't have any inserted record. So if we try to retrieve this collection, we should be getting an empty array. For that, first of all, we have to define a model class for the collection inside this models folder. So let me copy this file name from here. Let's create a new folder called models. Inside that, we can create this file book.model.js. So first of all, we have to import the Mongoose library. So here we go. From this Mongoose, we can invoke this method model. As a first parameter, we can pass the name of the model as book. And as a second parameter, we can pass the schema defining how the data is to be stored or treated inside the model. First of all, we have this property title. It will be of the type string. Like this, we need 3 more properties. So let me copy paste this like this. This is for author, published year, and price. Both of these are of the type number. Now let's export this model that we have just created. Module.exports. So from this file, by default, we have exported the model that we have just created for book. So in order to do any operation regarding this Mongoose model book, we just need to import this class mongoose.model.js. Now while creating this model, we have given the name of the model as book. Now the MongoDB collection corresponding to this model will be having a name with a plural version of this model name here. That will be books, which we have already created inside this DB here, books. So this MongoDB collection books and this model is connected through their name. Now in order to make any operation on the collection books, we can make use of this model that we have just created. For handling any such requests, we will be creating a controller, book controller. Inside that, we will be handling all of the HTTP requests regarding the entity book. So here we have the folder controllers. Now let's create a file with this name, book.controller.js. Now we are going to define a GET request for retrieving all of the records from this books collection here. So first of all, we have to import the Express server. Now in order to define the GET route, I will define this object router. Into that, we'll assign the object returned from this method Express router. So here we have the GET route. So this callback will get invoked when a request reach up to this GET request here. Now from this callback, I will return this string hi there. So inside this controller, book controller, we have defined a GET route. Like this, we can add multiple routes. At the end of the controller, we'll be exporting the route that we have just created. Okay. Now we have to configure the routing inside this Node.js application that we can do inside this server.js file. So first of all, we'll just import the routes that we have just exported from this controller. So here we go, book routes. Controllers/book controller. Now in order to configure the routing, all we have to do is just to call this method app.use, and then here we have the endpoint books. So all the requests starting with /books will be handled inside this book controller. So here we go, book routes. Now let's try to make a GET request to the route that we have just created. So first of all, we have localhost, then the port number that we have given here, which is 3000, then /books, then inside this routes we only have this /. So let's append that here, hit enter, boom. So here we have this string that we have returned from this route callback. Now instead of returning this string, let's return the list of records from this books collection. For that, first of all, we have to import the model that we have just created. Let's import it as book. As a naming convention for models, it is recommended to use Pascal casing, meaning all the words first character will be uppercased. Now let's assign the model that we have exported from the model file. At present, we are inside this controllers folder. In order to exit from this folder, 2 dots, then we have models. Inside that, we have the book model. Now, in order to retrieve all of the records from this books collection, we can do this. From this model book, we just need to invoke this method, mongoose method find. It will return an array of documents or records. Each of those records are returned with associated methods, which we don't need at this moment from this array. And it will be easy for us to read the documents if we have a plain array of objects. To do so, we can invoke this method lean on the return array. Okay, and after that we can make use of the promise that it returns. So here we have the success callback, and if there is any error, we can handle that inside this catch block. So here we have just printed the error object into the developer console. Now inside the success callback, we'll return the object that is returned from this find method, which will be a collection of the records from this mongoose collection books. So here we go, response.send method can be called. Inside that we can pass this data. Save this, back to the browser, reload the page, See, here we have the empty array because currently inside the collection we don't have any record. Now let me insert a new record manually. For that you can make use of this button here, insert record. First of all, we have the primary key. It is automatically generated by the MongoDB itself. Now we have to provide the rest of the properties as mentioned inside the model here. So first of all, we have title, which is the name of the book. So here we go. Then we have the author name. Click on this plus button here to add a new field. Author. Then published year. Price. Now click on insert. So here we have successfully inserted the record that we have just added. Now reload the page. Boom. Here we have the record that we have just inserted. So with the help of the Mongoose model, we have successfully retrieving the list of records from the given collection. Now let's try to render the list of records returned from this MongoDB collection books in our Node.js application here. For that, first of all, we have to know how to incorporate or integrate a template engine or view engine into a Node.js application. Before getting into that, let me prepend a message along with this error inside this GET request. Error during fetching operation. Now let's see how to configure a view engine inside this server.js file. Configure view engines. Now first of all, independent of which view engine you are using, first of all we have to tell the directory where we are going to save the views inside this Node.js application. For that, we can make use of this set method from Express server. Inside the first argument, we have to pass views, and then as a second argument, we have to pass the directory where we are going to save the views inside this project. In order to do that, first of all, we have to import the path module. So here we go, path is equal to require path. Now we can make use of the module for merging or joining path directories. So first of all, we have the directory name. So that will be the path up to this project folder here. Into that, we have to join the folder name where we are going to save the views. So that will be views. Inside this project, we'll be creating a folder called views. Inside that, we'll put all of the views inside this project. So let's create the folder views. Now back to the server.js file. So far so good. We have created and configured a separate folder for views inside this project. Now let's look how to add a view engine to a Node.js project. So here we have the most popular view engines for a Node.js application. First of all, we have Handlebars, then we have EJS, short for Embedded JavaScript Templates, and then finally PUG. Inside this project, we'll be using Handlebars. Instead of Handlebars, if you are using EJS or Pug, and if you know the syntax inside these template engines, you could make use of this tutorial anyway. You could do what I'm doing exactly inside the projects. You just have to know how to configure the view engines into the Node.js application, and rest of the tutorials will be same for you also. So for these two template engines, I will be providing the articles showing how to configure them into a Node.js application. You can find the links in video description. Now let's go ahead with Handlebars. Since we are using Express server inside the Node.js application, a better NPM package would be this Express-Handlebars here. So let's copy this installation command, back to the project, open the terminal, paste it over here, hit enter. That's it. Now back to server.js file. First of all, we have to import the engine from the Express-Handlebars. So here we go, engine from the package Express-Handlebars. Now let's configure the same into the Express server. First of all, we have to invoke this method engine from the app object. As a first argument, we have to provide the name of the engine, HBS. And then as a second argument, we have to invoke the engine that we have just imported from the express handlebars here. And finally, we have to invoke this method set view engine. Make sure to avoid any typo while typing these settings names here. Then as a second argument, we have to pass the same engine name that we have provided here. Now while invoking this method engine, we can pass an object as an argument to this engine method for additional configurations of the view engine. So first of all, I will set the extension name as HBS. So this is the extension that we are going to use for our views. By default, the extension is like this, handlebars. We abbreviated the same to HBS. So the file names will be like this, index.hbs. Now there is one thing you should be really careful while passing these names here. Whatever extension that we are going to use should be the name of the engine here. Otherwise, you will get error. So the first argument that we are passing to the engine must be the extension that we are providing here. The extension as it is, or the extension with a dot prefix. So with this invocation, we are configured or created an engine and we have set it as the view engine going forward in this project. Now let's create an HBS view for rendering these retrieved list of books. For that, as per the structure, inside this views folder, we'll be having a folder called books. So inside this folder views, we'll be having this folder books. Inside that, we will create this file index.hbs. Now in order to render this view from this control, all we have to do is, instead of sending the data, we'll invoke this method render. As a first argument, we have to pass the name of the view, that will be books/index. Because inside this server.js, we have already set the view directory up to this views folder. So when we invoke the render method like this, we have to pass the path from this views folder. So that will be books/index. You don't have to provide the extension which we have already configured here. Now as a second argument to this render method, we'll be passing an object like this, books. Into that we'll assign the retrieved list of records or documents from the Mongo's collection. Now in order to display this list of records inside this index view, so first of all we need an HTML table. Inside that we need a t-head and then a tr element. And right now I'm using the Emmet abbreviations and they are really helpful to add multiple nested HTML elements with a single syntax like this. Inside this tr element we have to add 4 th element. So I will do this th multiplied by 4. Now hit tab. First of all title, name of the book, then author, then price. And the last column will be kept as empty. We can use that later. Now after this t-head, we have t-body. Inside that, we are going to iterate through the list of books passed to this books property. So this is how the handlebars syntax works. Every syntax will be wrapped within a double pair of curly brackets. So here we go. In order to iterate through the array, we can use this syntax each and then provide the array name books. And in order to close this block, we have to do this /each. Now in between, we need tr element having 4 td cells. So this tr element will be repeated as much as records that we have inside this books array. Now inside this first td cell, we have to render the book title. For that we could do this meaning the current iteration object from this array. From that we have to render the title here, book name. Let me copy this and pasting here. Here we have to render the author name, then price. As a prefix I will add the currency symbol $. For now let's leave the last td cell as it is. Let's save this, back to the app, reload the page. See, here we have an error and it is asking for the layout which we have not yet created. A layout page called main.hbs. Don't worry about that for now. Let's try to render the page or view without a layout. For that, while calling this method render, we can say that we don't need a layout. So layout will be passed as false. Save this back to the app, reload the page. See, here we have the table. It's not looking good. We can fix that in a bit. Here we have the table header, and then here we have the render the row corresponding to the MongoDB collection record here. Now let's see how to add a layout. Basically, a layout means a wrapping, HTML wrapping like HTML declaration, body, head, and all of that. So here we go. Inside this server.js file, we can configure the layout like this. Layout directory is equal to path.join method can be called. Along with the directory to this project, just append this directory views, then /layouts. So inside this folder layouts, we'll be adding the layouts for this application, which you can see inside this app structure also. So here we have the books folder, and here we have the layouts. So let's create this folder, layouts. Inside that, we'll create this file, main layout.hbs. Now we have to provide the name of the layout that we have just created, main layout.hbs. By default, the view engine will be looking for a name, main.hbs, inside this layout directory. That's exactly what we have seen in previous era. So if you are providing a different name like I am doing here, you have to specify that with this default layout. Okay? Now inside this default layout, first of all, let's declare the doc type as HTML. Then we have the head and body part of the HTML document. Inside the header, you can add a web title like this, book register app. Now for styling the HTML elements, I'm going to use the Bootstrap style sheet. So go to the official website, getbootstrap.com. From this home page, you could copy this CDN reference for the style sheet. And let's paste that just about this head end tag. So first of all, we have the div container from Bootstrap. Inside that, we need a div with the raw class. Inside that, we need another div having these Bootstrap classes called md6 with an offset class, offset md3. Now this layout will act as a wrapper for all the views where we have not set the layout as false. So let me remove this. Now this view or this table will be rendered inside this main layout view here. All we have to do is just provide a placeholder to render the child views. For that, we can do this. Normally for handlebar syntax, we use a double curly bracket pairs like this. Instead of that, we'll use a triple pair of curly brackets. And then inside that, we'll provide body. So this is corresponding to the HTML that we have provided here. And in order to render them as HTML, we have added an extra pair of curly brackets here. Okay, let me save this back to the app, reload the page. Boom. At present, I'm using the extension Dark Reader in order to avoid the eye strains caused from the white screen. Let me disable it. So you will have a white screen here. In order to set a dark mode from this Bootstrap itself, you can search dark mode. All you have to do is just set this attribute to the body of the HTML. So here we go. Instead of light, just set this dark to this attribute data-bs-theme. Reload the page. That's it. Now let's improvise. First of all, we'll make use of Bootstrap cards. You can see the corresponding documentations here. So back to the layout page. First of all, we need a div with the class card, and just to apply a top margin, we can have this class top margin of the range 5. Inside that, we need this class card body, where first of all, we'll set the app title having these classes display 6, Let's set the font weight to bold. Let's center the text. And let's apply a vertical margin of the range 4. Inside that we will have this book register. Just below that we will have this bootstrap row. Inside that we have this column div called MD10 with an offset of 1 column. Now let me cut this body and just paste that here. Now let's see how it looks like. Reload the page. So here we go. Now let's style the table that we have here inside this index view. We'll apply these classes from bootstrap table, and then to highlight a row, when we hover the mouse on it, we can apply this class table hover, and let's get rid of the borders. In order to apply some background for the table header, we can apply this class table light. Save this back to the app. So here we go. So far we have successfully retrieved the collection of records from this MongoDB collection, and we have rendered the same inside this view using the template engine handlebars. Now let's see how to insert a document from this Node.js application into this MongoDB collection. For that, first of all, I'm going to add a new route inside this book controller. So here we go. Router.get method can be called as an endpoint. I will add this / add or edit, and here we have the corresponding callback. Now from this get route we are going to return a new view having a form for inserting new records into the collection. So that will be this view add or edit.hbs. Let me copy this and let's create that inside this books folder. Now we could do this. Response.render method can be called, and let's pass the view name /books / add or edit. Now in order to make a get request to this route, we are going to add a hyperlink to this table header here. So back to the view index.hbs. First of all, we need a div as a wrapper having this class float n so that the containing hyperlink will be floated onto the right side. Inside that we have an anchor element having these bootstrap classes btn so that the hyperlink will be shown as a button. In order to minimize the button size, we can have this class btn_sm. Now for applying the color, we can have this class btn_success. So here we have the div. Inside that we have the anchor element. Inside the anchor element we'll be showing this add, and here we have the corresponding link /books / add or edit. Let's save this back to the app, reload the page. So here we have the button. Now let's design a form inside this add or edit view for inserting new records into the MongoDB collection. So here we have the form element. Now in order to show the form controls, I'll be using this bootstrap style. This is the normal approach, a pair of label and input text field. In this project, we'll be using this style here, floating labels. When we place the cursor inside the text field, the placeholder will be floated like this. So let me copy paste this div from here. We don't need this ID attribute. Let me get rid of this. And we don't need this for attribute on this label. Now first of all, we have this property book title. For that we need an input text field of the type text. By default, text fields will be having the type text, so I'm going to remove this type attribute from here. As a placeholder, I'll be showing this book title, and let's show the same inside this label here. Now along with these attributes, we have to set this name attribute of the input control. Name is equal to title. It's better to use the same name that we have given for this property here. Now like this, we need 3 more input controls for rest of the model properties here. So let me copy paste this 3 times. This is for author. And inside this placeholder and this label, we'll be showing this author name. Then we have published year. and the corresponding text box should be of the type number. Inside them we'll be showing this published year. Then we have price. For that also we have to set the type as number. Price. Save this, back to the app, and let's try this button here. Sorry, here we have an error. Let's check the employee controller. The name of the file is given as it is, but here we have an extra / which is not needed, which we have not passed for this first list view here. So that should be the problem. Let me save this, back to the app, reload the page. That's it. Now both of these text fields are asking for a number. So it's better to put them in a single row or single line. So this is what I'm going to do. For that, we'll be using the Bootstrap grid system. So we have this div having this class row. Now in order to apply a bottom margin, we can apply this class MB3, which we have already applied to all of these input controls. So here we go, bottom margin of the range 3. Inside that we need divs having these classes call, and we need 2 divs like this, so multiply by 2. Now inside this first div, we'll show this text field for published year. And inside the last column, we will be having this price text box. Let's cut this and paste the same here. That's it. Now let's add a submit button. So here we have the div having this class float end, so that the containing child element will be floated onto the right side. Inside that we have the button which is of the type submit, and here we have the corresponding bootstrap classes btn. Then to apply a color, we can have this class btn success. Now inside this button we'll be showing this submit. Now when user click on this submit button, the form will be submitted to the URL that we are providing here. So that will be books/add or edit. This route we have not yet created because it will be of the type post. Inside this controller we have a route with the same URL, but it's of the type get. Now we need a route with the same URL, but it's of the type post. So /add or edit, and here we have the corresponding callback. For now, let's leave it as it is. Back to the view. Let me save this, back to the view, reload the page. So here we have the recently added submit button. Now I'm gonna add one more button along with this submit button so that we can navigate the list of records inside the book collection. For that, we can have this anchor element, an anchor element having these bootstrap classes btn outline secondary. This is just for applying the color. When user click on this, it should make a get request to this get route here, this one. So the corresponding URL will be like this, /books. Inside this anchor element, we'll show this text view all. So here it is. So it's working perfectly fine. Now along with this text view all here, I want to show a 3-line horizontal lines. Instead of using font over some icons, I will use the all quotes for 3. So here it is. Click on this so that it will be copied to the clipboard. Let's paste it over here. Save this, back to the app. That's it. Now before we go ahead with the form submission, let me implement the minimum validations inside the form with HTML validation. So first of all, I will make this book title as required. For that, we just need to add this attribute required. So let me copy paste the same for this author name and for this published year. And for published year, I will set the mean value as 001. Then we have price required, and here we have the mean value as $1. Now let's save this and back to the controller. Now let's deal with the form submission inside this post route here. So whatever form data we pass from this form will be there inside this request body object. So first of all, I'm going to create an object called book. Into that we will save the posted form data with proper format. So here we have the request body. From that, first of all, we need the title. So that will be the form data from this first input text box, because we have given the name of this input control as title. Now let me copy paste this for rest of the properties. This is for author. Currently I'm using the VS Code shortcut Ctrl D so that the next occurrence of the selected word will be highlighted like this, and thereby we could edit such highlighted words simultaneously. So this is for published year. In order to avoid any typo, you can copy the property from here and let's do the same. Ctrl D, so both of these titles are selected. Hit backspace, paste the property that we have copied. That's it. Now let's insert this object book into this MongoDB collection here, books. For that, we can make use of this imported Mongoose model book. All we have to do is create an instance of the model book. Into that, we can pass the properties from this book object here. So I will create this object, and inside that we will just destructure the object book. Now from this we can invoke this method save, and this save method will be returning a promise. So here we have the corresponding success and error callback. Now if this object is successfully inserted to the MongoDB collection here, from this form view I will just redirect the user into this list of records here. For that we could do this response.redirect method can be called, and here we have the corresponding route /books. That will be this get route here. As a result of this retrieval operation inside the get request, newly inserted record will be displayed inside this table. So let's try that. Click on add. So here we have the fresh form. Now let's populate this form with a book detail. Submit the form. Sorry, I'm really sorry. We forgot to make use of the package body parser. Inside the server.js, let's import the package body parser. So what this package does is that when a form submits the containing form control values, the submitted form data will be passed through the request parameter. Now it's our job to properly format and assign the data into the request body. So that's what we are going to do inside the server.js using this body parser package. So here we go. app.use method can be called. From this body parser, we can invoke this method URL encoded. As an argument, we have to pass an object with the extended property set as true. So to this body parser, here we are saying that we need to retrieve the data from the URL of the request to the request body, and we want to convert that into a JSON format. So we can invoke this method use again, and let's call this method JSON from body parser. Back to the app. Now let's reload the fresh form. For that, paste the cursor inside this URL text box, hit enter. Let's fill up the form again. Now let's submit the form. Boom, that's it. So here we have successfully added the new book, and it should be there inside this MongoDB collection. You just have to click on this refresh button here. Now if you are not a fan of white screens, I highly recommend this Chrome extension Dark Reader. Just enable it, that's it. So here we have the record that we have added from our Node.js project. Now let's go ahead with the update operation. For that, I will just add a hyperlink inside this last column here. So back to the app, inside this index view. So here we have the anchor element having these bootstrap clauses btn, then btn sm. In order to style this button like a hyperlink, we can have this clause btn link. Inside this button, we'll be showing this text edit. And here we have the corresponding URL /books/add or edit. So this will make a GET request to the existing route here. This one. And it will be returning a fresh form using this add or edit view. That's not what we want. On which record we click, the corresponding record details should be populated inside this form. For that, we can do this. Let's copy paste this route. And for this route, we expect a parameter ID. Now, from this table, along with this URL, we'll append the ID that is auto-generated by the MongoDB. So this ._ID, which you can see inside this collection. See, _ID. Let me save this back to the app. Now when we click on this edit button, it will make a GET request to this route here. This one. From that, we'll return the same view add or edit having the form. But along with returning the view, we have to pass the corresponding record object. For that, we could do this using the model book. We can invoke this method find by ID. Into that, we can pass the retrieved ID here. In order to access the ID that we have passed after this /, we can do this request.body.id. So whatever we have passed after this / will be assigned to this property here. So that's what we have given here, ID. Now like we have done inside this retrieval operation here, we have to invoke this method leen so that the return array of records will be converted to a plain list of arrays. So here we go. Now here we have the corresponding success and error callbacks. Now let's move this render invocation to this success callback here. Along with passing the name of the view here, we have to pass the object corresponding to the ID given here. So that will be the inside this data parameter. So here we go. We'll pass an object. Inside this property book, we can pass the retrieved book details. Sorry, here we have made a mistake. Instead of looking for this ID inside this body, we have to look for the same inside this params object. Now even though we have passed the corresponding book details to this view, inside this form, we have done nothing to show the corresponding record details. All we have to do is use this attribute value. Into that, we can pass the value that we have passed here. From this property book, we can access the properties like this. So book.title. Let's copy paste the same for rest of the input controls. Author, published year, finally price. Now this same view is used to load a fresh form when we make a GET request to this URL here. That will work without a problem because along with this render name, we are not passing any object like we are done here. So all of these input controls value will be empty. But when we pass an object like this, the corresponding properties will be populated inside the respective input controls. Now along with these visible controls, we need an input hidden field for storing the value of the ID property. So here we go, input hidden. The name will be underscore ID and the value should be taken from this property book._id. Now let me save this back to the app and let's check whether the record is getting populated back to the form here. Sorry, there is something went wrong inside the form. Sorry, here we have forgot to add the double quotes. That's it. Reload the view. Now that's fine. Back to the list of records. Now let's try this edit button. See, the corresponding record object is populated inside this form. You could see the same inside this collection, books collection. Now, whatever changes user make inside these form control values should be updated to the corresponding collection record here when we submit the form. And that should be done inside this post route here. Inside that we have already implemented the insert operation. According to the form, you could see that the form will be submitted to this route of the type post. Now based on the value of the post set ID, we can tell whether we have an insert operation or an update operation inside this post request. So first of all, I will do this. I will destructure the property underscore ID from the request body. If the ID is having an empty string, then we will go for insert operation, like what we have done here. So there is nothing to be changed inside this insert operation. Now if this underscore ID is having a non-empty string, then it means that we have an update operation. So here we have the else part. In order to update a record, we can do this from the Mongoose model book. We can invoke this method find by ID and update. As a first argument, we can pass the ID underscore ID. Then as a second argument, we have to pass the updated details of the record that we have already saved into this object book. So here we go, book. Now here we have to deal with the corresponding success and error callbacks. For that, I will just copy paste the same from this insert operation. If the update operation is successful, we will redirect the user to the list of books. Else, we will be showing the error like this, error during update operation. Let's save this back to the app, reload the view. In order to make sure all the fields are getting updated, I will append asterisks to all of the string properties. Let's make the ending numbers as 0. Submit the form. Boom. See, you could see the same inside this Mongoose collection. Just click on the refresh. Here we have the recently updated values of the record. Now finally, we have to deal with the delete operation. For that, along with this edit button, I'm going to add a button for the delete operation. Now we can implement a delete operation with a get request like we are doing this edit operation here. But it's not at all recommended. For a delete operation, it is always better implement the operation using a post request. For that, I will have this form element. Inside the form, we'll only have a button of the type submit, having these bootstrap clauses, btn, then btn sm, btn outline danger. Inside the button, delete, in short del. Now this delete operation will be implemented inside a post request. So I will set the method as post and the corresponding URL will be books/delete, then the ID of the respective record. Now back to the controller. Let's add the route router.post/books/delete, and for this route we are expecting an ID, and here we have the corresponding callback. Now back to the view again, reload the page. So this is how the button looks like. Now it's better to move this edit button or hyperlink to the form. So let me cut this and let's paste the same here. That's it. Now back to the employee controller. Now let's deal with the delete operation. In order to delete a MongoDB record, we can make use of this model book and we can invoke this method find by id and delete. As an argument to this method, we have to pass the corresponding id of the record. So here we go, request.params.id. Now we have to deal with the promise return from this operation. For that, I will just copy paste this success and error callback from this update operation. If the operation is successful, we'll redirect the user to the list of records. If there is any error, we'll show that like this, error during deletion. Save this back to the app and let's check whether it works or not. Click on delete. Cannot post books/delete. Sorry, here we have made a typo. We don't have to include this books part inside this route, which we have already added inside this server.js file here. See? So delete/id. Now let's save this back to the app, reload the view. Let's delete this first record. Boom. That's it. Refresh this MongoDB client. See, here we have only one record. So that's it guys. Here we have implemented Node.js CRUD operations with MongoDB using a template engine called Handlebars. You can download or clone this project from the GitHub repository link given below in video description. If you found this video helpful, please like and share this video with your friends and colleagues so that they can also benefit from this. Have a nice day. Bye.